How do you take a 1990s Honda Civic with 108 brake horsepower and get more power out of the engine? Well, you don't. You put a K series in it. Join me on my journey of discovery as I try and get a K20 Z3 to fit into my 1990 Honda Civic. Welcome back, race fans. This episode we're going to start putting the car back together again. My engine mounts are in, the traction bar's in, the clutch conversion kit is on its way. I'm hoping it's going to be in by the end of this episode, but we're going to start putting stuff back together. Here's the plan. Brake lines. 5-speed transmission is going to get an LSD, traction bar, subframe and tie rods. Finally, mount the engine. If you remember from episode 2, I had a real problem taking off this brake proportioner valve. Thanks to one of my subs in the comments, I was actually spending the first 20 minutes going in the wrong direction and therefore stripped the threads on the brake lines. If you haven't checked out that episode, I'll throw a link in the top left or right corner and you can go check that out. So here I'm trying to bend the rear brake lines so that I can move the proportioner and fit it to the firewall. Bending brake lines, especially 30-odd-year-old brake lines whilst in the car, is actually really hard. These lines were very, very stiff and I was having some real trouble with it. Once I'd finally got the rears attached and tightened, it was now time to attach the engine bay lines and then try and figure out how I'm going to mount the proportioner to the firewall. My original plan was to attach the stock lines back to the firewall, into the proportioner, then push the proportioner onto the firewall as suggested by VTech Academy. I later on found out that this was not going to work. Another problem I came across was, because I'm not familiar with this proportioner valve, I completely forgot which lines go in which holes. So my advice, take a picture of everything before you start taking it apart. So this was one of the problems I found. The rear brake lines were so stiff, it was making it hard getting the front brake lines into the proportioner. Again, you can see here how I'm struggling with the 30-odd-year-old lines. They were just so stiff and I didn't want to break anything, so I was trying to be as delicate as possible. And here you can tell by my overall demeanor that I'm just not happy with it. As you may see, all the brake lines are out again and the proportioner is off in my hand. Basically trying to manipulate it whilst everything was still attached was working, but it just looked like shit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this on the firewall where the two back brake lines can fit. Then I'm going to cut the ends of the original brake lines, straighten out a section from here, so make it perfectly straight. Then I can bend it to work with the proportioner. Probably going to mount this on here though, but away from the wall. So maybe using some box aluminium. I haven't decided yet. That's my next job. But finding the right spot for this has been a bit more of a pain than I expected. So let's figure out what we're gonna do. So as you can see, I have a little piece of box aluminium. I'm gonna drill some holes, put some riv nuts in for the proportioner to sit to it, and I'll drill some holes in the middle so that I can attach it to the firewall. So.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, hand me the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag, cause I sing what I mean and I bring it to the mad light, ain't got time to kill, I got time to feel, I took the red pill, I know life's short so I wanna live real, but how's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel? They wanna say my name, but they holding back. They wanna say they hate, but they know it's cap. I ain't play no games, I just do that fact. And I don't feel no shame, it's a mood you lack. I go crazy, nah, but I ain't lazy. Track after track, I work on this shit daily. Pass me the jack, right as fuel, got me hazy. About to unpack all these things I've been chasing. I've got visions in my head, like memories after death. To be a legend instead of something you can forget. I'm living up every breath, I'd rather lead than be led. I'll fill the seats as I spread with every word that I've said. How's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel?
Right, I think that's kind of fucking alright. Finally, I got the proportioner mounted to the firewall. Now came the task of straightening the old brake lines. Basically, this device has 4 sets of rollers. I got it from Amazon for $25, and you just wiggle it in and out. You can see with me struggling here how stiff these brake lines are, but I finally got all 4 front brake lines straightened. So I wasn't happy with how it all looked and just been pushed in out of the way. So what I've done is I've cut off the ends of them all and I've straightened them out to the point where they all bend up. So they all follow the same line from the master, but then they're going to bend up. So what I'm going to do is put new ends on them, flare them, situate them in the car, then bend them into position. So I bought a flaring tool. What we'll do is we'll unbox that now, and then we'll go through putting new ends on these brake lines. So after fighting with those brake lines for what felt like hours, I had enough. Basically what I've gone and done is bought a brake flaring kit, and we're going to cut the ends off those brake lines, straighten them, and then I'm going to put new ends on and rebend them. So looking at this pneumatic brake flaring kit, obviously handle, this is the main device, handle probably goes in here, brake line goes in this way, and then that's squished, and these are all the dies here. Oh, look at that, I got a cutter with it. I didn't need to go spend a ton of money getting a cutter. So we'll get this set up, we'll do a test flare on just a piece of brake line, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the flaring tool is set up in the vise. We are going to flare one of these old brake lines. I'm really hoping that they flare well. Okay, whenever you're flaring brake lines, and I've done this myself, make sure you get the tube nut on before you do the flare. So it gets very, very frustrating. So this is the problem with old lines though. It's trying to get them straight enough to get the new tube nut on. Like this one's having problems. You see this little bend? It's the tiniest of little bends, and the tube nut is not liking it. So let's see if we can rectify that slightly. I bought these new tube nuts, and unfortunately the real pain in the ass to go down. So what I did is I have salvaged the ones that were on the car. So now it's time to flare these brake lines, and hopefully it's old line, but hopefully it'll flare okay. So to set it up, we've got the flaring tool in the vise. Put the flaring die in. The line to be flared. I try and get it in as best as I can with it not being straight, or as straight as we could possibly get it. Over half of the die. Okay, snug it up. Then tighten. This is going to be the good indication of whether I am going to have to make all new custom brake lines. All right, P1. Now, P2. All right. Moment of truth. Actually, let's see if you can make that out. Maybe not, let's see. There's not actually a bad flare trying to... Doesn't help the fact that my hand's in the way. But yeah, that's not a bad flare. Okay, so I didn't mark which lines went where while it was still attached, which was a major mistake. But for your reference, top left, as you look at it ahead, is front right. Top right, as you look at it, is the booster front. Bottom left is front left, and bottom right is booster rear. What I've done as well is I went ahead and made like a little piece of box aluminum which I've attached to the firewall, and then a little piece of riv nuts so that I could have this stepped away and nice and level. I got the rear brakes already attached. Now it's time to put the front and boosters back on. brake lines are in. I think I reattached everything correctly. I'll probably find out the first time I ever tried to bleed the brakes or press them in anger and they don't work. So, well, brake lines are in, wipers are in. On to the next project.
After several years of ice racing, the frame of this car is kind of bent a little bit. So I'm using a hydraulic ram here just to push out the main subframe rails so that I can get the traction bar in there. It was only out by a couple of millimeters, so it didn't need a lot of persuasion to get the traction bar in. I did, however, find when I was trying to attach the traction bar, it attaches where the OEM tie-down hooks are. These were bent and twisted, so some modification is going to be needed. On the driver's side, I'm missing 2 of the capture nuts on the inside, and on the passenger side I'm missing 2 as well. So I'm going to have to cut a hole in the sheet metal here and use a nut and bolt through the holes.
Okay, traction bar is on. Believe it or not, it is actually level. It's the rest of the car that's bent to shit. I can't get this one in here, so what I'm probably going to have to do is drill out the nut on the back and put one of these in with a bolt. Yeah. We will see once we've got everything hooked up whether it works or not. See, this is already bending. See it? So, yeah. To look at this side. It's not as evident, but it is definitely there. Alright. Time to start reassembling the new subframe and the rack and pinion. So when I took this one out of the old subframe, you have to disconnect the tie rods from either end, otherwise it's a real pain in the backside getting it out from there. But apart from that, it looks like it's just going to be a simple straight flip it over, put it in and bolt the sucker up. So we do have new tie rod ends coming in. There is like a rubber grommet that goes around on the left hand side as you're looking at it. Just get that quick clean up. Sit in there. Right, I think it's about time to bolt it up. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to use anti-seize when you're putting back together your car. I personally live by this stuff. Just makes then working on the car in the future that little bit easier. But I will say this, it does fucking get everywhere.
So the inner tie rod, brand new one, comes like this with the nut on the end. Also comes with a washer and a locking washer. And the locking washer goes together like that. And then this goes on the end there. It's got thread locker on it, so I don't need to use any like blue Loctite. And now just get it started. And then I want to make sure when I get to the tighten section, I get the tabs lined up. That's as tight as that goes. Okay, boot install. So I didn't buy any new boots, but the ones that I have are not in terrible condition. They're not in brilliant condition, but they're not in terrible condition either. Worst thing is the clips broke, so I now have to tie wrap these suckers on. So we're gonna go all the way in and up and tie wrap them. Okay, boot is on. Now it's to put the nut on and the outer tie rod. Now when you take off your outer tie rod, mark it and count how many twists you have to do. Then that way, you shouldn't have to get an alignment. When I did mine, I counted 20. Right, tie rods are left and right. So make sure you put the right ones on the right side. Well, that's basically on. There's a line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now, I'm just going to leave them loose for the time being, because these are different, might be different tie rods from what I already had on. So I'm going to do both sides, put the wheels on, lower it down, wait on wheels, then check the alignment. And if it's good, it's good. But that is basically inner, outer tie rod with boot done. Now let's go do it on the other side. K-series mounts for the EF are a little different from the EG and the EK, because the passenger side actually needs to be welded to the subframe as opposed to be bolted. So here we are currently trying to figure out where it mounts and grinding off the paint so that we can get some good welds in there. Once these welds are grounded down, we're going to make sure that they're painted so that they don't rust. Apologies here for the camera being a bit blurred. I'm guessing it's actually picking up the nearest suspension tower. Also, I've got the current header that I have for the K-Series attached, and what a surprise, it didn't clear the subframe. That means I gotta get a custom header made. The largest issue I'm having at the moment is the fact that the frame is slightly bent, so trying to get the mounts to line up is being a real pain in the ass. Okay, so engine is in. As you can see, awesome eBay mounts. Do need to paint where I welded it in, and down here as well. But the eBay mounts, they look pretty much similar to the Hasport billet cut. Same in the back. Working on the fuel system now. Got the fuel filter, fuel rail in. Yeah, just got to get this all buttoned up. Headers, intakes on, throttle body's on, headers being made, custom header. Got to figure out how I'm going to get the shift cables through. I'm probably going to use this hole here in the firewall. That's going to probably mean taking out the heater core, which is over there. That'll be in the next video. Get the brake and the clutch line fitted. But all in all, it is coming along. On to the next one. So in the next video, we're going to be looking at putting the suspension back together, getting the drive shafts in, getting the new custom header attached, and hopefully getting the car fired up. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'm hoping you're enjoying the series. If you are, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, as it's going to help me out a lot. And until next time, thanks for watching.